Hello and welcome to the Live Series podcast, where I bring to you some of the best technology leaders across Europe who are prepared to give up their time to share their expertise, stories and ideas in a way to bring the tech community together and inspire the next generation of software development professionals. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Raz Shuty, who is the Director of Engineering at Delivery Hero. Now, for anyone out there who hasn't heard of Delivery Hero, they're one of the world's leading online food and ordering delivery platforms. And this year they've recorded a milestone of delivering 100 million orders in 1 month. Raz has a wealth of experience in technology, starting out as a software engineer back in Israel. He's previously founded his own IT companies, and then he's moved over to Berlin, where he's had several tech leadership positions, including an engineering manager, head of engineering, and now recently the director of engineering at Delivery Hero. So Raz, welcome to the show. Great to have you here, and really excited to hear your thoughts on a number of topics.
I'm super excited to be here. So yay, thanks for having me.
Cool. So I've got quite a lot of questions for you, as you can imagine, with someone having so much experience. But how we usually start the podcast is for you to give the listeners, I suppose, a little bit of information about you, how you've got into software development and how you've progressed your career into software leadership.
Okay, so about myself, first of all, I'm a parent, happily living with my spouse and 2 children. As far as like how I got into software development, I have a relatively routine type of path. I mean, I was a kid, I started computer class when like in middle school or something. I wrote code in Pascal. I kind of loved it. And then I found myself already knowing at the age of 12 or 13, after like writing some scripts at home, that I'm going to find myself doing a degree in computer science. And I actually did. And kind of started. I think my first job was a QA, a manual QA, back in the day when those were more a thing. As a student. And from there, I basically moved from, after finishing the degree, I kind of started also doing development. I've always been a weird, in a sense, I've been a weird puppy in the regards of, I've always been a full stack developer, but more on the front end side. I think JavaScript has been the constant in my life, where backend has been random.
Right.
Kind of happily worked on Perl, C#, Ruby, Python for a while, Node.js, and the front end has always been JavaScript. It's always been different frameworks of front end, but I've always kind of could rely on good old JavaScript to be there for me.
Is that the programming languages that you're kind of working on in your teams at the moment then? On the
No. No. I mean, I love JavaScript. It's great, but it doesn't fit for every case, right? There is a good tool for the right problem. I have currently 2 teams. One is doing Python, and the other one is doing Kotlin. So basically, kind of started with Java and more ported into Kotlin. But you know, syntax is syntax. It's if people are good developers, they can adapt. If they're bad developers with good knowledge, they'll just, I don't know, they'll be bad developers in that specific syntax that they have a lot of knowledge in. So,
yeah, fair play. So how did you make that transition from, was it you said it's quite an easy transition from a developer into a leader. Kind of talk the listeners through that transition for you, and when was it that you realized that you would be good at it, and what traits, I suppose, would you say that you had that would enable you to get to that position?
So that's where the story isn't as routine. I mean, in Israel, besides like creating my own things, but that's like something that you do with a friend. It never really completely blew up that I was really a manager. I was a developer with a small team. Right. But the first time it happened, I was working in a company that grew relatively big. My manager got promoted, and he came to me and said, "Hey, you got a knack for it. You should actually be the next team lead." And I said yes, but I said yes from ego. I just wanted the title and a better pay. I didn't really want to be a manager. I was like, those meetings are boring. I don't care to talk to people. I just want to write code. I want to be better. I want to be a better developer. And that was the phase I was at right at that point. And I hated that role so much that after a year I resigned, and I swear I will never be a manager in my life again. And I think about 3 years later, I moved to Berlin, and it happened organically again at a company called Okshanata. And when it happened at Okshanata, it just felt right. I think my mind was there. I already felt like I've seen many things, and I was more into, I had a really good product counterpart who taught me to be a product-driven person. I mean, a good story about that is that we built something for the warehouse system for the logistics of Okshanata. So we moved to the warehouse and we actually saw how they work, or we moved to the production to see how they work. So we didn't just build stuff. We actually wanted to solve their problems. And that's something I got from him. And once I was there, my mindset was like switched. I wasn't just a developer anymore. I kind of was trying to understand how to create solutions. And we started hiring people, started actually caring about that. That was where it worked out for me, but it was completely random and I didn't plan for it. It just kind of happened.
Cool. But that's obviously something that you've never looked back from since then. And that's, you're at that state. Do you think it had anything to do with the culture that you were in and maybe the support that you had around you and the fact that you were maybe content in that environment that would allow you to make that transition?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm not sure at the 100% level that I will always be a manager. I kind of find it very romantic, the concept of the pendulum, kind of move back to developer and move back to management. It has something really nice as to keep your hands on and still not be detached, which is manager the more like, I know it's a cliche right now to say it, but it is a fork in the road. It's not the same thing. It's not a promotion. If you become a manager, you're no longer a developer. And the more your management role kind of, gets more refined and you get better at it, it means that you kind of have mental focus and capacity on getting better at management. So don't put that same effort on being a developer. So you lose that touch, right? So it's weird. I'm not sure if I'll ever, if my next job will be management or not. It really depends. I can't commit to it.
Yeah.
But right now I am, and I'm very happy with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it is. It's a good support system. It's writing helps me a lot. So I write, and also podcast is something that came, I'm also a podcaster myself. It came from the concept of, I started writing things for myself, right? Like I wanted to write how I manage stuff, how introspective myself, and then just publish it as a thought. I realized that there are a lot of things that I'm writing about, but I'm not sure. I wanted a counterpart, just someone to balance my crazy. That's how I started kind of podcasting as well. It's just kind of, I wanted to have a person to talk to tell me, no, you're wrong. So this thought is not fully refined. Don't write it.
Do you think when if you're making that step, because there's different routes that you can go down, isn't there? Obviously management, and it's not necessarily always about the strategic side. You can, depending on, I think it's important that if you are making that transition, that you understand what your strengths are, what you enjoy working, because you could soon move down the wrong path and realize you're too far removed from what you actually like. And maybe focus too much on the strategic element when really, you're a coder at heart and you still want to be hands-on, but ultimately that role isn't that. So is that important in terms of understanding where you're going?
Yes. I mean, for sure it's important. And I think it's tricky as it is a fork in the road. You need to kind of find your path and find who you are. You can be different flavors of a manager. You can be a technical manager and be very technical as well. It also exists. And you just need to find the right place for it. So I wouldn't say it's like a path of no return, but you also need to understand what is the right place for you and what's not, and kind of find that stuff. And you can be a CTO of manage 2 people and still be hands-on in a small startup.
Yeah.
That startup could actually explode and grow to 200 people. Then you need to ask yourself, am I the right person for this or not anymore?
Yeah. Cool. Great advice. Let's dive into your time at Delivery Hero, because I know that you've been there for around about a year now. I know Delivery Hero, obviously a brilliant company and doing great things in the market at the moment. Tell us about your role there. What's your kind of responsibilities and, what's happening ultimately in the team at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm basically me and my product counterpart. We are tribe leads, and tribe comes from the Spotify model, which we loosely follow. We use a lot of the jargon, but we're not really fully doing Spotify model. I don't think anyone is doing it. Same for Spotify, by the way.
Yeah.
It was more aspirational. I think they wrote an article that it was aspirational. Basically, it's like use the marketing ploy. Anyhow, I love Spotify, so well, I said anyhow, I love Spotify, so no complaints there. But yeah, we kind of loosely follow the Spotify model, and we both are owning a business unit. And what is demand, and so kind of needs to kind of get out of that bubble and expand. So demand is part of logistics, and logistics is part of Delivery Hero. Delivery Hero, as you kind of mentioned, is basically the world's leading local delivery platform. And we have two different business models. One is a marketplace, and the other one is logistics.
Yeah.
I'm not part of marketplace, so I'll mention Delivery Hero is a middleman connecting actual customers from a vendor that has a courier fleet, right? So they can actually deliver to you. Cool. Logistics is where I'm part of, so I can explain a bit more. In logistics, we have our own couriers, right? We actually send a courier to deliver something for a customer, and we have really great algorithms to find the right person to deliver the right order, right? That's where the entire concept of the revenue comes from. It's like optimizing. But what if there is no right rider, right? Like if a customer makes a decision and we already know that when you order from your favorite pizza place, there is no available rider in that place, right? There's only the least worst one. So that comes where the concept of this demand thing is there. We want to basically incentivize the customer to make better decisions for everyone. One is for the rider. The rider doesn't need to go for an hour and be annoyed. It's one tip. It's kind of not fun to ride a whole lot of way. Yeah. The customer is happy. I mean, if I'm ordering a pizza, I kind of, after 20 minutes, I can eat my fingers waiting. So I'm very angry if I'm waiting an hour, and I'm extremely angry if the pizza is cold, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of want my food to be warm and quick. And also, basically, we are happy. I mean, a rider that is doing an hour of delivery means that that rider cannot do 3 deliveries in that 1 hour. So like if I look at it like a thread pool, we have a rider that can do more work and be happier, do less distance, and it works for everyone. That's kind of what we created, me and my counterpart, where we have different type of initiatives to steer demand into making better decisions for everyone.
Amazing. How's things been over the last 6 months? It's the $1 million question for everyone that I'm kind of speaking to, because everyone's reacted a little bit differently. Have you been impacted in any way, I suppose, as kind of an online type of business?
I mean, I think everyone has been impacted, right? I think generally we weren't impacted with hiring, for example. I don't think we even let go any person because of the pandemic. Yeah. But our business shifted a bit, right? Like for example, in some countries we started delivering medical supplies for elderly people who are afraid to go out of their apartments. So we kind of had to do those things really quickly. Like we added new features insanely fast, not following our routinely way of working, because we basically had a roadmap or like basic objectives that we want to hit, and then the world changed, and those objectives they're nullified. They don't matter, at least some of them. So we had to kind of rethink some stuff, do stuff differently, and also we kind of had to address the reality. It's not normal time. It's weird. So people who had to work from home, for example, with kids, we had to kind of find a way for that to work for them as well. Our commitments were a bit more loose about that. So if a person, I don't know, worked a bit later, and that was fine, couldn't join dailies, it's okay. And if we delivered a bit less, it was also okay. It was a very weird start. Those first 3 months were really odd. And I think the best thing that we did as a unit is besides letting people go home, we kind of established that we have a manifesto of how we want to work from home and what is our standards. And that kind of worked really well.
Okay. What was the biggest challenge for you as a manager to flip from? Because I imagine that you were quite often in the office pretty much all the time, and then all of a sudden you're then working from home, etc. What was the biggest challenge for you as a manager and a leader to make sure that worked well?
I mean, I think managers they need to redefine their role. Everything in the office is more organic. Like you can kind of turn around to someone and say, hey, what about this thing? And you got an answer. And now that everyone is remote, Slack basically those instant chat messages are bombarding you all over the place, and it's really hard to prioritize.
Yeah.
And if you create a meeting for a question you can get an answer to, and after like in 2 seconds, it becomes a meeting where you have 30 opinions now and an hour and a half of no decisions. So you kind of need to find a balance, and I think that's something that all the two managers I'm managing right now, for example, are also struggling with, is the idea of how to find the right way to communicate and also to take away the issues of remote, especially with the socially distancing part.
Yeah,
has this distancing in it, right? But we kind of we want to be friends. Our values at Delivery Heroes that we're friendly to one another. But if I'm talking to a computer every day, at some point I get very annoyed.
Yeah.
So we kind of need to find a way to create a remote culture. And we are not a remote company. Like, we're not remote first. We've never been a 100% remote company. So we had to adjust a lot, and we kind of tweaked. We had to find better tools to do pair programming remote. Retrospectives remote. We used to do post-its in the office. It's small things, but it actually, it was a struggle to figure out how to do those things. And you became a junior manager and a junior whatever, all of us, because we were like, oh, it's a new environment. How do I communicate in this? And yeah, it's been affecting us on the day-to-day, but I think generally as a business, Delivery Hero has done really nice things for the community around it, and the local market specifically, right? So in that regards, I'm very proud to be part of Delivery Hero.
Yeah, cool. Where do you see the world of remote working going over the next kind of 12, 18 months? Do you see people wanting to work from home all the time? Do you see a bit of a hybrid, or do you think that there's, as soon as there's opportunity to get back to the office, that that'll be back to the norm that we had before?
I won't speak for Delivery Hero because I don't think we have figured it out, right? So the Delivery Hero, for example, until this COVID thing is over, we are mostly doing remote first.
Yeah.
And we'll figure it out. But for me, people are going to hate me. I don't like remote. The internet is going to hate me a lot for it. I mean, it's not the worst thing. I think 100% remote is not something I think makes sense.
Yeah.
Because first of all, you lose your competitive edge. I mean, I don't know why the developers are so eager to lose that. We talked about before we started recording that you ran a poll. I did it on Twitter, and I got thousands of responses, and most people wanted to work 100% remote. And then I asked, aren't you afraid that if you all work remote and it's global, then why would someone hire you in a San Francisco rate if you live in San Francisco, if you can hire someone somewhere else? Why are you willing to lose your competitive edge, which is working locally is more efficient? That's the competitive edge when you work co-located, right?
Yeah.
Reduces overhead. I didn't get a good answer for that, honestly. And also there is the other part, which is I am a parent. I love my kids, but I cannot work from home effectively as I do from the office.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents are struggling with it. I think a lot of parents are actually enjoying it as well. I'm not going to generalize, but there needs to be a hybrid solution, in my opinion, where 2 days a week we work together in the office, where we actually see each other. We remember that we're human. We interact. We smile. We remember that when Raz is saying something, that there's a smile behind it. So when I write it, you can kind of hear my voice, maybe you see my expression. So it's not as direct or annoying. And we can plan. I think mostly the biggest challenge I've seen right now is communication and planning with remote. I don't know. Maybe I'll address this with you because you ran the same poll, and your role now, I guess, is to find people for organizations. What are people telling you about remote?
You hit the nail on the head. Your first point was that was my biggest observation, that you've only got to look at the big boys, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, they're all going 100% remote. And I think that once those types of companies make a stand, generally everybody else follows suit. The problem with that, like you just said, is if someone's in San Fran and they're on X amount of salary and all of a sudden Apple, they decide to hire everybody remotely, well, they're not going to give everybody across the world the same salary that they'd give in San Fran. So there's got to, again, you're losing your competitive edge. So I completely take that point. I think, you know, coming back to the poll that we run a couple of weeks ago, I think there was just under 1,000 people that voted, and only 15 people said that they can imagine that they'll be working from the office 100% of the time. I think the fine balance is kind of a hybrid solution where maybe 2 days a week working in the office to collaborate and then 3 days from home. But, you know, we've had consultants here who are, you know, literally tearing their hair out at home, wanting to get back into the office because they just miss that camaraderie. And that, you know, again, you know, if you've got an idea, you just, you know, you can turn to your colleagues, ask a question and get a straight answer. You're not having to just put it on Slack or on Teams, etc., and wait for somebody to come back to you because they're on a call and they're doing something else. It's like, what are we doing? So I think that there is that loss of productivity there from that side of things. But equally, at the same time, I'm a father of two. I love, you know, being at home with my kids, you know, before they go to school and then after they come back from school as well, which, you know, if you've got the commuting time, you know, to get to work and to come back to work, then you obviously lose that, don't you? So I think there's got to be a fine balance. I don't think there's a one size fit all, but equally at the same time, I don't think that fully remote completely is the solution for everybody, for every company all across the world. I just don't think it would work. So.
Yeah, I think we have this tendency as our industry, right? It's hard to say it's tech industry because it's different businesses, but the tech people in that industry, to follow the trend. And then we realize that the truth is in the details. We always do that. Kind of jokingly about Spotify model. At some point, everyone did Spotify model, even though Spotify never did it, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone did it because it was such a great presentation. It was such a great marketing tool, right? And everyone adopted that. And then everyone's like, oh, but it doesn't fit me. Because there is no silver bullet, right? Every business is different. Every type of person you have is different. So having a full remote situation will not work for most people. Having a full co-located situation is not something that I would accept as well anymore, right? The reality has changed. But that's the details. Every company needs to kind of think about what makes me great. Do I need more communication and planning, or can I actually be more loosey-goosey and let people have more exploration? Can I go, what are the people that I have, what do they need? Can I provide people who still want to work in an office, if I go full remote, a place to be at? For example, people who cannot work from home. All those things are questions that people are not fully looking in the details of, because it's so easy to say, oh, Twitter did full 100% remote, we can do it too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. That's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily as maybe the answer everyone hears from me all the time.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Let's switch on to a different subject. I know that diversity and inclusion is a topic that's really important to yourself. I've heard you speak about it a couple of times on your podcast and in articles that you've been a part of as well. And I know that it's something that Delivery Hero are obviously very keen on trying to fix this problem ultimately. What procedures have you put in place at Delivery Hero to try and tackle the issue of diversity and inclusion from a recruitment perspective?
I mean, first of all, I would say that most important thing is to start understanding realistically what you're looking for. As an industry, we have a tendency, again with this industry thing, but we have a tendency to like put in like a job advertisement and to aim for our ideal candidate. Yeah. We'll settle for less, but we will aim for the ideal candidate. What we need to take into account is that there is a gender balance or understanding, or even not gender, also between different races, right? Like how we read those things and what we feel that we are entitled to actually apply for. Mm-hmm. So if I put, I'm looking for a principal software engineer, but I'm actually willing to take a mid-level engineer, a lot of studies have shown that women that are not mid-level will not apply. They'll just say, oh, they're looking for a principal software engineer. I am myself and not a principal software engineer, not applying. Where men tend to do, they apply. They basically go with the system of what's the harm of trying,
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference, right? So I would say first, write your job advertisement realistically to what you want to hire, not what you're hoping your best solution would be, but is what you're willing to settle for, and then aim to get better. Like, filter immediately those who don't fit. You don't need to talk to them. It's easy. You get to talk to more people actually. But then, yeah, that's a cutoff, right? That's what I posted right now. It's the cutoff. Everyone that actually applied that fits this is a person I'm also willing to hire. And also just do some gender checks on your job advertisement. If anyone will ever post a code ninja or anything as stupid as that to me again, I'm just gonna lose my mind. Yeah, like there's so many things that you can actually write that is very talks to very specific crew, right? And doesn't mean that women don't get attracted to that, but statistically less. I mean, I once saw a very kind of trendy Star Wars job advertisement where like they're recruiting for the Galactic Empire. It's cute, and there are women who love Star Wars, but mostly men do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So you kind of, when you do that, you target a specific community. And I don't know, and this is again something small, but all those toys, it's great that you have them. I mean, you have a lot of dudes, it's fine. Everyone wants to play with table tennis. Does it really need to be in a job advertisement? And if yes, then maybe find something else that attracts the other gender, right? Like, oh, great, we have table tennis, but also we have a nursing room. That's kind of nice, right? Add those things because I think we men write those things. So we think, what is awesome for me? And we forget, what else do we have? Do I have a nursing room? A nursing room. That's kind of great. Oh, we help with finding kindergartens. That's kind of great. And I know there are fathers too, but sadly we can't take away the history of how all those families are set, right? Like you have a lot of gender roles in a lot of households. For example, I told my team, we said, they suggested to have a test, that we send home a test to developers to filter. And I kind of said, I read about it. And I read about an article saying that most women don't do those tests because they're too busy with the kids. And because of just, as sad as it is, it still falls more heavily on women than men. Yeah. And if a woman is applying for 10 different positions and she gets 6 tests, then she's going to continue with the other 4 because she doesn't have time for those 6 tests. We are expecting that woman to do what? 2-3 hours of test times 6, take care of kids with a job that she currently has. And also there's a benefit for that for men as well. Like all those things that I'm saying, they can apply for the other side. Just the statistic is different. Like if it's 80-20, then there's 20% men affected by it and 80% women. I'm not sure about the numbers, but you know. So there is benefit for everyone from it. It's just basically just to kind of decode all the problems that you have in your process. And also what I would love to do more is try to look at how to look at the pipeline, meaning why do I have, because everything I said now is fixing the pipeline, right? You have more women applying. So potentially and hopefully, if you have 50% women applying, 50% women and men, you have that on the other side. And if that's not the case, you start asking yourself why. What in the interview that we're presenting is wrong? I actually think we should involve as many underrepresented groups in the interview process. They see other things as well. And not just, I don't just mean interviewing, that's for sure. I mean, in building the interview process, they should actually kind of point out what is good for them, what is not. And then maybe we share those things. Like, I know that, for example, a lot of women are talking about how they don't like whiteboard sessions because it doesn't work with the skill set that they actually naturally come with. In many cases, right? Like it's stressful. It's like a room full of some dudes. They ask for a question, and they need to draw stuff. Men are more comfortable talking, usually not smartly sometimes, not necessarily smartly, but I'm very comfortable. It's like just babbling nonsense. But what you want to do is check if a person fits a job. How many whiteboard sessions are you going to do that are tests? So you're basically testing a person. If a person could pass a test, that doesn't matter to the work, right? Yeah. So those are minor adjustments, and that would be great if we get to that point already. that'd be great. And of course, the biggest one, which is to get more women to start, to feel like, and to stay. Start meaning more women in university learning computer science, more women going through those female, whatever, like so many initiatives like women, hacker women, and all those things, to start doing that without, and also women to stay. I mean, our industry has a really terrible drop-off of when at 30-something, most women are actually already kind of being spat out of the system. So we need to create a better culture to keep women inside. And everything I said is not just like me being a social justice warrior. I am. Don't get me wrong. Follow me on Twitter. You'll be annoyed by me all the time. But it has a business value. Literally, you can get women to work in your organization and underrepresented groups, because think about it. If you create software and products for everyone can actually share their opinions. It makes it better. Look at the recent Twitter problem that they had, where they were, I don't know if you know it, they have the algorithm, when you post a photo, they zoom in on a face. And someone tested that, and they put white face and a black face. And it always zoomed on white faces. And then came the question, didn't they test it, or the people who tested it and they took their own photos and they put it on are just white people, so they never noticed that that's how they trained the model? Apple had the same problem with credit cards, where they trained a model to do a credit score, but they didn't have any women there, so they didn't test their models on women.
Wow.
It has a huge business value. If you build stuff for everyone, maybe the most, I don't know, what your ideal team would be is a representation of something you can play with as a group of minds that can see all the different problems and come up with solutions that fit all the different eyes. It's a global industry. It's no longer like, we are not, I don't know, I think of my father, he's a chef. He knows his crowd, right? He knows his audience. It's very specific. It's a small place. It's in a very specific place. He knows who the people who will come to him. In a global market, who am I to guess what will work well or not will work well in someplace else, right? What will work well for one or the other. So we kind of need to have all those things. It's yeah, sorry for babbling about it. It's just like really a passion topic.
Yeah, that's really really insightful, and definitely opened my eyes up to a couple of things that I hadn't really considered before. But yeah, really powerful stuff, and I think it's really important, to be fair. What is that something that you've done then at Delivery Hero, in terms of taking that technical test away from the process, outside of the process?
No, at Delivery Hero, we actually never had, I mean, I can't speak for Delivery Hero, but logistics, we never had a technical test. When I joined, I was so happy about that. We also have a very streamlined interview process, which I like. I don't think Delivery Hero might agree with it, so my opinion here. Interviews are bullshit. And I mean that in the best way, where investing 3 hours will get me similar information as I would if I invest 10. So why make anyone miserable in a 10-hour process interview if I can get basically the same result as 3, which is a guess?
Yeah.
I guess with a 60 to 70% certainty, or if I'm lucky, 80% certainty, that person is great for that position. So like, I like that in Delivery Hero, it's like, it's 3 hours for a developer position. It's 3 interviews. Sometimes it's 4 hours or 4 interviews. It depends if there's more to explore, but it doesn't weigh in on anyone. It doesn't take you 6 hours to do a task at home. It's more like, let's understand if you add any value to us, if you want to work on this topic, if you can actually do the things that you're claiming you can do on your CV. Yeah. And then offer. Basically, that's kind of how we do it. Yeah,
cool. All right, brilliant. Just finally, Raz, in terms of just going back to kind of tech leadership and anyone who's looking at that step from an engineer into a tech leader, what's the best piece of advice that you can give to somebody if they're looking to make that transition?
I mean, first of all, I would say it's not a promotion. I said it already, but I'll repeat it. If you're moving from tech hands-on to leadership, or to management, sorry, you're a junior at your new job. Treat it as if you would moving from software development into data science. You would need to learn a lot, right? Yeah. Do the same. Just treat it as a completely different thing. Two, I kind of corrected myself here as well. Leadership and management are 2 different things. I think management has a bad reputation, like the word has a nasty reputation. So we all say lead. But we took away a big part of individual contributors and senior developers are leaders. Like, we shouldn't take it away from them. An individual contributor who's a senior needs to mentor, to grow people, to change minds without having a trump card to say, I told you, you need to do it because I told you. A manager has that. Technically, a manager kind of needs less leadership skills than a senior developer. If you think about it, the senior developer needs to inspire and convince. A bad manager can say, do it because I said so. I mean, not the ideal manager, but you can coast by doing that and not as a senior. Read some books, find your voice. I mean, it took me time. I didn't like it the first time. Ask yourself also, what makes you good at it? I mean, it's a lot of introspection. Look at yourself, ask yourself, what am I doing well? What aren't I doing well? How can I improve? Find a mentor to help me. All those things are super important, and give it a good 2-year try. I mean, if you hate it, as I did, don't quit after a year and say, it's not for me. I think if you give it a good try and you try, after 2 years, worst case scenario, you can, no harm done. You were still close to code enough as an engineering manager. You can go back, be a senior developer, and it even gives you another kind of interesting aspect to being a developer. But if you do it for like 6 months and you feel it's chaotic and crazy, it is. You just need to find a system. So don't give up before finding the system.
Cool, brilliant. All right, Raz. Well, thanks everybody for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. If you have, could you please like, comment, and share the podcast with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else that you'd like to share it with as well. And we'll be definitely back in a couple of weeks for the next episode. Thanks very much, Raz.
Thanks for having me.